understanding exchange roles and components. All right, let's get started with this series. Before we actually get into the process where we're doing the configuration and clicking the buttons and making decisions about how we want to implement various things, we need to kind of understand all of the different roles that are involved with Microsoft Exchange. I don't want to dig too deep here into the design of separating out these roles, because that's intended for the 7663 exam and the designing exam pack associated with it. But what I want to do is help you understand the reason why Microsoft has split apart all of these different functionalities into Exchange roles. Now, as you can see here, Microsoft has 5 different roles that are used for creating an Exchange organization. The first, and the one that you're probably most familiar with, is the concept of the mailbox server role. Now, the mailbox server role obviously is the server role that holds mailboxes. It is the giant database where your mail essentially resides. Your users will work with the mailbox server in order to work with their mail, delete mail, read their mail, send mail. All of the functionality associated with storing that mail is stored in the mailbox server role. Now, a number of versions ago, Microsoft realized that having all of the functionality of Exchange in a single server probably wasn't a great idea for scalability. And at that point, they realized that they could take and break apart certain levels of functionality and put them onto different servers if people wanted to do so. What this provides is that so that Exchange can then scale from small environments to medium environments and even to enterprise environments. Now, one of the ways that they've done this first and foremost is the creation of the client access server role. This role provides a location for clients to actually access the Exchange organization. And it's actually a very well-designed role. Because of the client access server role, users in their Outlook mailboxes or users with Outlook web access can point to a client access server and then have that client access server ultimately point them to the correct mailbox server. Now, the reason why we have this is so that we can administratively, in the back end, move our mailboxes around from server to server without impacting the user. One of the things you're going to find out in a future nugget is related to Exchange database availability groups. These database availability groups will allow you to create up to 16 copies of an individual mailbox database so that you can spread them out for different reasons. You may have one copy local so that you can take down one server and not impact mail flow. You may have another copy in a remote site for disaster recovery. You may have a third copy with a lagged configuration so that if you have database corruption, you can then have a protected copy of the database that you can roll backwards to. Now, the client access server role provides that mechanism so that users can access the infrastructure. When your users go to Microsoft Outlook, and if you have a client access server for Exchange 2010, Outlook will automatically locate the Exchange organization using Active Directory parameters and characteristics, and then automatically connect the user to that correct mailbox server. And this is a good thing. Now, the Hub Transport Server role provides another interesting functionality that's very useful for today's mail requirements. In today's mail requirements, we have the need to actually route mail throughout an organization. And the role of the Hub Transport role is to provide that routing. In a small organization with only a single server, the Hub Transport server really handles just the mail that is on that server. But you can see as your Exchange server scales to multiple servers and multiple sites and multiple locations, the role of the Hub Transport server gets much more important as the size of your organization scales. One of the other reasons for the Hub Transport server is related to some of the inefficiencies associated with the SMTP mail protocol. The SMTP protocol does not have functionality built into it to keep a list of users together as it is being transferred throughout an organization, and then expand that list at the resulting site. Now, one of the jobs of the Hub Transport server is to provide that functionality. So if you end up sending a piece of mail to 10 different people, all in a remote site, in the same remote site, the Hub Transport server will ensure that only one copy of that mail gets sent across your network connections in your wide area network until it gets to the correct site. This significantly reduces the amount of bandwidth required to have this Exchange organization and to pass mail throughout the different sites in your organization. Lastly, we have to have some sense of a bridgehead, some sense of a server that takes the pounding from the internet and filters out all the inappropriate, unnecessary, unwanted mail that we consider spam. That's the role of the Edge Transport Server. The Edge Transport Server is the location where most of your anti-spam technology will be homed. Also, where many of the content filtering parameters are going to be configured. Think about it. The percentage of total mail that gets sent around the internet on any particular day is significant in relation to spam. And so having a single server or an array of servers at your perimeter that blocks the majority of that spam before it gets into your organization ensures that you don't have to have high-performance servers in your organization. Or at least you can have servers that don't need to have to process all that extra spam unnecessarily. That's the role of the Edge Transport Server. The final role, and one role that we're not going to spend very much time with at all in this series, is the Unified Messaging Server role. Unified Messaging is a mechanism essentially for you to integrate in instant messaging and voicemail into your email system. And Unified Messaging is the server role that provides the functionality for that to occur. Most of the exam content associated with Unified Messaging, and also most of the knowledge that is needed for Unified Messaging, is very much separate than the knowledge and exam content that's required for a basic Exchange organization and its implementation. And so as I said, we won't be spending much time with this Unified Messaging Server role in this series. Now, as I said, these roles enable a substantial amount of flexible scalability to an Exchange organization. If you're a very small organization, you can get by with only a single server. That single server will host the mailbox server role, the client access server role, and the hub transport server role to provide the basic and minimum necessary requirements for an Exchange organization. You can then scale as you see fit. One of the great benefits of the Exchange platform is the ability to scale out as necessary when your needs arise. There is nothing hindering you from adding additional servers at any point, whether they be mailbox servers, client access servers, hub transport, even edge transport servers, to support the needs of your organization as it grows and matures over time. I'm going to show you a little picture here. You're going to be seeing this picture over and over throughout this series because it provides a sense of a multi-site organization that has all of the different roles in place. Imagine that you're here in the Denver site, and this is your Active Directory domain that comprises both the Denver site and the Las Vegas site. You may be sitting here at Nugget 1 in the Denver site. When your Nugget 1 client opens up Outlook, it's going to connect to the client access server here. The client access server is going to connect you to the correct mailbox here in and amongst the mailbox servers that are available. Those mailbox servers can be here within your local site, or if perhaps you happen to be in the Las Vegas site and connect to the Las Vegas client access server, this client access server can then connect you to your correct mailbox server as well across to another site. This benefit ensures that no matter where you go inside of your wide area network, as long as you're in the same domain, you're going to find that mailbox server. It also means that you as an administrator can move that mailbox around to whatever server makes sense for your administrative needs. And it will not impact the user needing to work with their mail. Now, I talked also about the hub transport server here, and how the hub transport server is a mechanism for routing of mail. Imagine if you're here on your mailbox server and you need to send a piece of mail to a group of people in the Las Vegas site. When you send that piece of mail, that mail is going to first go to the hub transport server, and from there to the hub transport server in the Las Vegas site, and then from there to the mailbox servers of those individuals. By doing it in this manner, we are able to route our mail appropriately throughout our organization. We also get around, as I said before, some of the limitations associated with the SMTP protocol. Now, what's interesting is that if a user here, let's just say Nugget 1 once again, is on their mailbox server and needs to send a piece of mail to someone in the exact same mail database, that piece of mail is still going to work from the mailbox server out to the hub transport server and back to the same mailbox database. This seems inefficient. Why would we need to take that piece of mail all the way to the hub transport server and then send it back to the same mail database? Well, the reason for that is because of today's requirements that have been levied on organizations due to regulatory compliance, and also due to the need to have a single location where administrative policies can be applied. The hub transport server in an Exchange organization provides that location. Every single piece of mail that comes in and out of a mailbox server is going to go through a hub transport server. And all of your policies will be replicated throughout all of your hub transport servers. What this means is that you can apply policy at the hub transport level and be assured that that policy, no matter what kind of policy it is, and we'll talk about those policies in upcoming nuggets, those policies will be applied to every single piece of mail, no matter what happens when they're moving in and out of your organization. This is a very good thing and a very good advantage to having Exchange 2010. Now, the last thing we have to talk about here is this edge transport server. Obviously, at some point, you're going to need to send a piece of mail to the outside world. This edge transport server, as I said before, provides that location for sending that mail. Now, you'll notice that this edge transport server is sitting in an internet DMZ. And an edge transport server is not part of your Active Directory domain. However, in installing the Edge Transport Services, you will be installing an Active Directory Lightweight Directory Services partition so that the Edge Transport Server will have enough information about your recipients in your organization to do what it needs. When your Nugget 1 here attempts to send a piece of mail to someone in the outside world, it's going to leave the mailbox server here, move through the hub transport server, potentially move to another hub transport server, and then out your Edge Transport Server before it hits the internet. So what this provides is, again, that single location where mail can come in and out of your organization. As I said before, the mailbox policies and the mail policies that you have will be applied at the hub transport server layer. You can also apply additional content filtering policies and anti-spam policies at the Edge Transport Server layer as well. This not only protects you from inbound spam, but also protects your organization from being considered a bad internet citizen. When you are considered a bad internet citizen, you can get put on black hole lists or deny lists that prevent your mail from being received by other organizations. And this is not a good position that you want to be in. This Edge Transport Server provides a significant amount of resources to help you not only protect yourself, but protect the rest of the world in case you make a mistake. Now, there's another thing you should be recognizing about this image, and that is that all of these servers are contained within individual sites. This word site here is not used generically. This word site actually refers to the Active Directory site that is associated with this geographic location. I mentioned earlier that Exchange has significant impact on your Active Directory and leverages your existing Active Directory topology for the routing of mail. You'll find that you will need to have a minimum of at least one hub transport server in each of your Active Directory sites to support the routing of mail. And that your Active Directory site costs, those costs that are used for determining Active Directory replication, can be used by Exchange for determining the costs associated with getting mail from one mailbox server to another in a remote site. So when you design your actual Active Directory, or when you design your Exchange organization, you should be conscious of your Active Directory organization as well, because that site structure will have a big impact on how your Exchange organization is laid out. So in this nugget, you need to be aware of the Exchange architecture and how that Exchange architecture follows the Active Directory architecture. In the following nuggets, we're going to talk about some of the elements associated with that Active Directory architecture, not only forest and domains, but also the individual sites and how to configure those sites, assign subnets to those sites, and then also look at the individual costs that you can create associated with the connections between sites. So what have we talked about in this nugget? We've talked about the individual Exchange roles, and we've overviewed why these roles exist, and also how these roles interconnect for the creation of a fully functional Exchange organization. We talked about the mailbox server role, the client access server role, hub transport, edge transport, and a little bit about the unified messaging server role. We then also talked a little bit about how Exchange can scale from a small environment all the way through a full enterprise worldwide environment by following your Active Directory architecture and specifically your site topology. In the upcoming nuggets, we're going to start by installing our first Exchange server and then configuring that Exchange server from then on. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.